Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. This is my third video based on your suggestions, and I should have the other two coming up sometime soon towards the end of this week and then maybe into next week as well. So again, thank you. Please keep those suggestions coming, and then that way we'll get things wrapped up for this round on here. Now this particular cryptid, this is by far one of the most original, unique, far left type of cryptids out there. I mean, some of the stuff I've talked about in the past I thought was as original as it gets. No, like as that saying goes, truth is stranger than fiction, and in this case, this particular cryptid is a doozy. I've never heard of this one before on here, but after doing some research on it, it's very, very cool to present the information to you here. Now, this particular cryptid is actually a plant of some sort. So following in the theme that I've talked about in the past with other particular plants out there, like the man-eating tree, and then that tree that you could talk to and tell stories to, and vice versa, it would tell you its stories as it aged. This was a unique cryptid or plant in that it actually grew animals, and it's called the Vegetable Lamb of Tartary, which you'll see a picture of here. Pretty cut and dry. That's what it is, what you see here. Essentially, it's a lamb that grew from a plant, and this was a full-blown lamb as well. This was not an imitation of a lamb. This was not a lamb that looked and acted like any other lamb but did not breathe or live or anything like that. No, this was a real 100% lamb. It walked, it essentially ate, it breathed, it did everything that a normal lamb would do, except the difference was that it was grown from a vegetable, and it was forever tied to the vegetable as well through its quote-unquote umbilical cord, which I'll talk here in a minute. Now this particular cryptid, you have to go back centuries to when it was first reported on here, and the reason why I'm talking about it here is because over the past centuries, there were actually multiple tales associated with people seeing these particular cryptids, these vegetables in and around the earth on there. And so that's why I'm talking about it here, because if there was, let's say, just one or two people or one or two areas that were talking about this particular vegetable, I would kind of write it off. But when you have multiple sources, again, people telling tales, writing them in books, experiences, stuff just handed down over the centuries in a multitude of areas, then it is too much of a coincidence. So this particular cryptid, it came and it went, unfortunately, and when it came on, it was seen in many different areas over several centuries, but then that's it. Unfortunately, it's a long lost cryptid now, because in doing my research, there really hasn't been any recent tales associated with this vegetable. So again, it was first reported sometime around the 11th century, and then it stretched the tales of it throughout the following centuries, but then that was it, nothing else on there. So unfortunately, this is what is presumably a extinct cryptid. So let's talk about the Vegetable Lamb of Tartary. What is it exactly? Well, basically, it's, again, what you see here. It's a lamb that was grown from a plant, and its umbilical cord is essentially the stem that is tied to the vegetable itself, which is tied to the ground. And the way that the story goes with this particular cryptid is, it was just like any other plant. You would see it grow, but the more it grew, you would suddenly notice that it was growing something else other than your standard fruit or vegetable or anything else along those lines. Instead, it looked like it was growing something like an animal, and this lamb that would grow within it would in turn blossom and become a full-blown 100% grown lamb. Again, just like any other lamb or sheep that you see in any other pasture. Imagine that, but this was tied to the vegetable itself. And the story and the legends go that, unfortunately, that umbilical cord was permanent. It was a permanent thing. It could not detach itself without killing itself. So the plant fed the lamb through the umbilical cord, and in turn the lamb fed around the area surrounding the plant on there. So unlike, of course, humans and other animals that are born with umbilical cords that can be cut off, this was a creature that if you were to cut off on there, it could not sustain itself, and shortly afterward it would die on there. And so the legends go that sure enough, this particular lamb, it would just be born, and then it would graze in and around the area, eat as much fruit, eat as much other plants that are surrounding it on there. And then once it ran out of food, or once in turn it accidentally, let's say, separated itself from the stem, then that was it. It would just die on its own. And the stories go that this particular lamb could actually be eaten as well. It was meat. It was something that was, again, just like any other lamb out there that you could cut up and cook and then eat afterwards. And so once people saw these lambs dying just naturally, then they would eat it afterward, and they would also eat the plant that was attached to it on there. They would also use the wool that the lamb had to make some clothes, of course, and then everything else, bones, the works, everything, just like any other people that use all the resources that an animal has for their basic living needs. This thing was done with the lamb itself. It's based on what I read too, it looks like the only other predator that this vegetable had was wolves. Wolves were apparently attracted to this particular lamb slash plant, and they would hunt this lamb slash plant, but that was about it, which kind of is a bummer for this particular vegetable lamb, because with it being attached and there was a pack of wolves coming, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, in terms of either running and separating itself from the umbilical cord, or staying and trying to live, and in other words being eaten instead by the wolves right then and there. So apparently also people that ate this lamb found it to be pretty good tasting. They said that its blood was supposed to taste something sweet like honey. So I don't know, I've never eaten lamb myself, so if anyone else has in the past, and let's say you've eaten lamb that's a little bit more rarer cooked, if you know, if you can tell, you can post your comments below and share if that's the same deal, whether the lamb's blood is sweet or not. Then that'll be interesting to see if that's true compared to this plant, or if that's a stark contrast to the other thing on there. By the way, the official classification of a cryptid that is a plant is actually called a zoophyte. So just wanted to bring that out there on there as well. Now again, going back to the particular cryptid and the tales surrounding it, there are multiple instances where people reported encountering this particular cryptid, and this is again way back when, 11th century, 12th century. So I'll highlight some of these here as well. There's a gentleman that actually wrote a book based on this particular cryptid. His name is Henry Lee. He wrote this in 1887. It's called The Vegetable Lamb of Tartary. Simple enough, of course, the title, pretty cut and dry, and that's where he described the lamb in its full detail on there. That's where most of what we hear of now with this particular cryptid is tied to with this book. Multiple drawings in there too, apparently, showcasing essentially what was this lamb that was out there. But he is like the main resource, his book is the Bible, in other words, of this particular cryptid. So if you have a chance, catch that book and you'll be able to essentially hear everything that's associated with this. But otherwise, there have been other tales with this particular vegetable lamb as well. Apparently this gentleman by the name of Sir John Mandeville, he describes that he just returned from that location, Tartary, where he describes seeing a quote-unquote strange gourd-like fruit grown there, and that apparently that he inspected that fruit, and when the fruit was cut open, what was inside was an actual lamb. Flesh and blood is what he called it, but it actually did not have its wool. Instead, it was just 100% skin. But he's the one that's actually credited with bringing to the attention in England, to the public attention in England, this first tale. So he's also a good resource with regards to this particular cryptid. But he again describes seeing something which had a strange quote-unquote gourd-like fruit. He would cut open the fruit, and inside that fruit there was a lamb right then and there. So apparently there was also a friar by the name of Odoric of Friuli, and he traveled a lot, and he heard also, this was around Persia, that whenever there was a fruit there that was also ripe and you cut it open, that's when it also contained this lamb in there too. And then towards the mid 16th century, there was somebody by the name of Baron von Herberstein, and he stated that he claims credible sources that basically he saw this on there too. He saw a creature grown from quote-unquote melon-like seeds, and this resembled a lamb. And apparently, I guess maybe he cut one open, or he saw one that was dead, but he did see that it had blood on there too. But the interesting part was, he said, while it did have flesh, it didn't look like flesh. Not like the traditional flesh, like lamb meat that we would think of, but he said it resembled more of that of a crab. I guess that soft white meat rather than the thick brisket-like the lamb meat that we know of. So interesting differentiation on there when it comes to this particular cryptid. But again, another resource associated with this creature on here. Pretty cool stuff. Multiple areas with people talking about the Vegetable Lamb of Tartary. And again, and saying that yes, they've seen the creature or they've heard of the creature, but in most cases they've seen the creature themselves. Pretty cool stuff. So what do you guys think? The Vegetable Lamb of Tartary, I mean, is it one of the most out there cryptids yet? Too bad that we don't have anything closely resemble this. Some people, though, actually state that the legends associated with this particular cryptid come from a real life plant. It's called, oh boy, this name is a doozy. It's called Cibotium baromens, which you'll see a picture of here. And people believe that most of the other tales that I just described and encounters were actually people running into this plant. This is a real plant. This is a plant that exists today, in fact. And the reason why people think that it's something associated with this plant instead of, say, a lamb that they think it was, is because you'll see a picture of it here with the base, but when you actually cut away that base on there, apparently what you see is this, and you'll see what looks to be a furry creature, some kind of animal of some sort. It is not an animal. It is not anything even close to an animal. It's just a byproduct, something, I guess, it doesn't grow fur, but it has some kind of material on it that resembles fur, maybe some very fine leaves or very fine materials of some sort. And from far away, and again, judging by the size and the shape of these things, one could think to themselves, oh, okay, this kind of does look like a lamb. Maybe in like most tall tales, that's where these things grow from. And so maybe people were running into this is what people that are criticizing this particular cryptid have stated, that they ran into this particular plant, this real life plant, and then cutting away the base, or having seen the base not there anymore, and they see this from far away. It kind of does look like an animal. That's where they're thinking, okay, this is the real deal, instead what they ran into. So otherwise, if anyone knows any tales associated with this particular cryptid, please share your thoughts. Again, we don't have anything more recent, so I'm asking if anyone has heard anything more recent, maybe in the past 20th century even, about the Vegetable Lamb of Tartary, or anything closely resembling to it, or any other. It doesn't even have to be a lamb, anything else, because in my research there was tales of barnacles that released birds into the sea, and then others that apparently grew crabs of some sort. Very strange stuff. I mean, they also released geese, apparently. Again, strange stuff out there. So if anyone has any such tales, please be sure to post them below. So alright, thanks again everybody. Take care. Bye.